By doing this, it's not only for me, it's for my family, it's for my descendants, and it's for my ancestors. I'm stopping this thing in its tracks and not allowing it to conquer me. I've stopped drinking alcohol now for a collective total of about 2 years. And I've also stopped using other substances as well. And I'd like to talk about my journey with that in this video and how I found greater peace through that. I started drinking alcohol in middle school and early high school. Growing up in Washington, D.C., a lot of my peers drank a lot of alcohol at house parties and outdoors at the park. That was just kind of our way. That continued throughout college. And after college, when I moved to Los Angeles, I was drinking very, very regularly, probably every night, at least a little bit. I never saw it as a problem because the life I was living was the only one I'd ever really known. And I do want to mention that there were times in my life where alcohol was of great benefit to me. It's not so black and white, right? I recall after a few years of LA, being completely wiped and totally without any kind of peace or rest, moving into a community home that was meant to host artists and creative people of that sort. And coincidentally, the pandemic started about a month after, so I was forced to sit and chill with all these new people that were my age. And the parties we had there were actually of great utility to me in just relaxing and taking it easy and trusting that taking a little bit of rest and respite was actually a good thing for my overall journey. But overall, I would say that alcohol, despite the fun times I had, resulted in more of a net negative than a net positive. I mean, there's the effects of it the day after with hangovers that would last well into the afternoon. As I grew more self-aware and whatnot, I also grew sick of saying stupid stuff and doing stupid things and having to account for them and explain them in the morning. I still to this day find it very strange where people will do something and then just say, well, I was drunk, as if that's somehow an excuse for your actions. There were a few experiences that made me see more and more clearly that alcohol was not really serving me. When I was in LA, I began slowly drinking and driving. It would start by just driving down to the corner store, and then it'd expand to another liquor store further away until I was driving quite far while under the influence of alcohol. One night driving home, I got pulled over by the police and had to do the whole breathalyzer thing. The legal limit was 0.8 and I blew a 0.7. So that was pretty damn close to the line. That was really a sign. Sometimes we get signs that are so obvious something needs to change. Like I was 0.1 away from losing my license and getting a DUI, and there's so many negative consequences to driving and drinking in California and just in general. Part of the thing that helped stir that thought within me of giving up alcohol was really looking back to my family lineage. There's alcoholics on both sides of my family, and I know that both my father and my grandfather have had their struggles with alcohol. And I remember making this family tree because I was also very interested in my lineage just in general, and seeing this line, like my grandfather struggling with alcohol, and then my father, and then me. It's like, I connected the dots very clearly, like, wow, this thing is bigger than me, and I now have the opportunity to improve and act even better based on the experiences and history that my ancestors have provided for me. For some reason, seeing it in this broader context gave me more power and more of a feeling that by doing this, it's not only for me, it's for my family, it's for my descendants, and it's for my ancestors. That I'm stopping this thing in its tracks and not allowing it to conquer me. There was almost like a validation or an empowerment before I'd even decided to stop drinking. Just knowing that this decision meant more than simply exercising discipline when I was around people who were drinking or around alcohol. I can't quite pin down the specific moment when I decided I wanted to try and be sober for a year. It was something that was kind of percolating in the back of my mind for a long time. And unlike my decision to leave LA, it sort of just flowed slowly more and more to the surface of my mind to where one week I decided, all right, I think I'm going to try this out. That was in March of 2022. I remember the experience as being rather strange. The first few weeks were simply a matter of discipline and focus and, finding other means to fill that hole, so to speak. I drank a lot of non-alcoholic beers, and I still do, which is incredibly ironic, and I think another sign to be humble, because when my dad was still alive, he used to drink a lot of non-alcoholic beers, and I just kind of like looked down on that. I thought it was so goofy to drink a beer without alcohol, and now here I am relying on this thing to achieve my goal. The irony is not lost on me, and the humility I gained from that was painfully earned. I remember after a few months having this sort of existential dread, because the part of me that was outgoing and voracious and funny and humorous seemed to be totally gone, because it was only out when I was drinking, because I only felt that level of comfort and excitement when I was under the influence of alcohol. And I feared that perhaps that would never come back, that had never been a part of me, that I was simply a sad, quiet dude, and that my enthusiasm that I had so long identified with was merely a facade. That lasted for the first 2 or 3 months. I'm glad that I kept on with it and made it through, because another month after that, I had a really strong breakthrough when a friend of mine came to town and we went out to the bars. I wasn't drinking, but we still went out. And it was the combination of, my good friend being in town and feeling somewhat confident that I had sustained myself for 3 months without drinking, and just not caring anymore what people thought about me, that we had a great time, and I kind of felt that confidence and that excitement kind of bubble up inside me. And I happened to also meet a woman that night, and we chatted, and I was kind of doing my thing, and it all just flowed very naturally, and I had just had that insight, like, wow, like I can feel this feeling and I can have an exceptional time without anything external. It can just come from me. That was something very profound. And once I had grasped that, although it was still a very rough journey to reach that level frequently, I had a taste of what was possible. I finished a year in March of 2023, and I had a pretty good grip on it. I didn't really miss it. I wasn't like fiending for alcohol really, but I thought, let me just see how bad it really is. I thought, let me just have a drink here or there and see if I can't manage just having a drink here and there. So I drank a bit here and there, and the first few weeks were fine. And then it slowly progressed to more and more, until after a month or two, I was back to just getting schmammered and getting lit. And I sensed that with this particular activity, it had to be all or nothing. So I committed to sobriety once again. I got the type A. I tried drinking a bit. I didn't like it much. So a few months ago, I said once again, like, I'm just not going to drink anymore. Let's talk about the benefits of not drinking. Aside from this newfound confidence that is really authentic that I've expressed to you previously, the benefits have been quite substantial. I mean, not having any hangovers is exceptional, and you don't really recognize the value of getting good, consistent sleep and waking up well until you've done it for a while. I remember drinking, I would wake up groggy and feeling like crap and just get the day going, and that was just standard protocol. And it's not a terrible way to live, but having been sober for a long time and having woken up consistently, not only well rested, not only alcohol free, but energized and excited for what the day holds. I know it sounds corny, but it's for real. It's such a great feeling. And I can still go out and have fun because I've found that fun within me. It's something that I can share with the world instead of needing to grasp onto something to help facilitate that. My physical health has only improved. My skin is great. My body's strong. I'm flexible. I'm mobile. I'm articulate. All these things that I couldn't get if my kind of like streak of consistency was constantly interrupted by these bouts of alcoholic indulgence and feeling really crummy. Before I even began sobriety, I had to really think about it a lot. Like, why am I doing this? Why bother stop drinking? And I noticed that the feeling I would get when I would come home after working all day and drink like 2 or 3 micheladas and kick it at home and like listen to music was it was, looking back, it's like I'm like just brooding and kind of like harboring this strong, warm feeling, one that I was very accustomed to and felt very safe with and at home with. And I think looking back, it was sort of like this resentment or this bitterness or just this general feeling of smothering down. Something that's very warm because it's so vague. And I think it's so vague because you're ignoring painful things, painful messages that your body or your heart or your soul are trying to tell you. I grew addicted to that state of brooding and that state of warmth. Despite the fact that I knew and had this intuitive sense that it would be better to move away from this, there was something that was really pulling me into that space. I think it was one that I had dwelt in when my father passed away and through all the unfortunate scenarios that occurred to me in my life. So there was a familiarity with it. And I would imagine that's the challenge with many people, is the familiarity of that space and the comfort and solace you get from this space that may be hurting you, but you know how it's going to hurt you. And in that sense, it's easier to choose than a path forward where you don't know what's going to happen. Outside of the physical and sort of emotional benefits that I've articulated to you, I also feel just a greater sense of peace and worthiness. I've proved in a small way that I can provide these states of being for myself. And something about that is very, very empowering. Something about that leads me to a great feeling of peace. When I'm sitting and I'm feeling some type of way, my instinct is less and less like, what can I seek that's going to bring me that feeling that I would rather feel? And more so, how can I sit with this feeling and what can I do to slowly shift it into something I'd rather be feeling, into a different state of being? And there's something very, very empowering about that. It feels really good to be able to really control your internal reality to a greater degree without needing anything else. I was able to do this on my own. I never went to AA meetings. I wouldn't really even call myself an alcoholic. Something about that terminology seems to me like I am somehow allowing that substance to become an intricate part of my identity. And I don't want to grant it that power. If it hadn't been that, it could have been a myriad of other things. But I recognize that for some people, doing it alone is out of the question. And I encourage everybody to not follow what I did, but follow the thinking and compassion and focus to go down whatever path they need to go down to achieve the same goal, which is peace and self-love. That may look like going to meetings at AA, that may look like reaching out to friends or going to rehab or this or that. I've learned the most not when I've emulated directly the people that I aspire to be like, but when I emulate their thinking and their logic that led them to take the actions they took, which may be vastly different from the ones that I take that serve me. I am open to hearing about and would love to hear about other people's journeys and experience with the same thing. There's a lot that I don't know. There's so much more that I could learn. And I think these platforms could be a great opportunity to exchange information and grow. So I look forward to sharing more videos about my experience with the hope that it could be of service to you. Thanks.